Hello friends, my name is John. I'm glad you stopped by. Today I wanted to make a little video about the possibility of a Babylon 5 reboot and what I thought about it. I think I should give a little bit of background about Babylon 5 in case some of my viewers don't know anything about it. It was a television show made in the early 90s, created by a man named J Michael Straczynski. He intended it as an intelligent science fiction 5-year novel for television. Now, young viewers should realize nowadays TV shows, it's common to have plots and subplots that run through the episodes, through the seasons. But back then, I had never seen it. It was done in things called soap operas, but any shows that I commonly watched did not have it. Now, he was very intelligent in that he utilized the early internet and chat groups to talk up the show before it aired and also to interact with the fans as the show aired. But I didn't have internet at the time. It wasn't common like it was today. And I hadn't heard anything about the show. Now, the premise of the show, the major premise, is that there's Babylon 5 is a space station. It was created as a sort of United Nations to have where different alien ambassadors could come to work out any problems, because in the past, a major war had occurred because of a misunderstanding, and they wanted to prevent anything like that happening in the future. But Babylon 5 was a big space station, so they also had it as an area where people could stop if you're doing trading or traveling and you needed to rest or whatever. I was unaware, like I said, of anything about the show. I eventually grew to love it when I finally realized what was occurring, that they were building things and laying things down gradually that materialized in the bigger plots as they went along. I was just amazed and astounded because I had never seen it before. But it took me a long while to realize that was happening, and I almost bailed on the show in the first few episodes. There were a couple episodes in the first few that made me misjudge the show, that I thought the characters were one-dimensional. And then sprinkled in too were a couple episodes that seemed cliche, and I've seen the plot before. So like I said, I almost bailed, but the reason I didn't is back at the time, there weren't that many shows to watch. So I'm like, well, there's not much on. Had it been today, with all the options you have of other things to watch or other things to do, get on the internet and surf the net, look at YouTube or whatever, I would have bailed on it. But anyway, the characters that I thought were one-dimensional, there were two major characters. One was a Narn, was the race, named Jakar. Now, he appeared as an evil character in my first impression, that he was warlike, scheming, vindictive, vengeful. And his race hated the Centauri, and the main character there, ambassador, was Londo Mollari. And he came off as buffoonish. He gambled, he drank, he did foolish things. And then to add insult to injury, that the Centauri, the buffoonish race, looked exactly like a Three Stooge. Larry Fine had bald head, hair stuck up like this. And then the so-called evil race, the Narn, looked reptilian, had scales, their eyes looked like a lizard or snake. And I'm like, do you have to make it more obvious? I mean, come on, can't I just see by their actions what they're going to do? This was what I was thinking to myself. And then the captain was sort of the stereotypical wise, clever. He sort of interfered with Jakar's plans. He either stopped it by tricking him or mitigated what he had done. And I thought, well, is this going to be every episode? I'm not, this is like lame. Again, it might have been 2 episodes or so. Then they had another episode where an archaeologist had found this alien technology, and he brought it to the space station. He smuggled it in, and it merged with a person to make sort of a cyborg, and its mission was to destroy anything that wasn't perfect. And it's like, I've seen this plot before on Star Trek. I think it was called Voyager or something. A Voyager had merged with something else and was destroying imperfection on the Enterprise. I'm like, I've seen this. And of course, how it's going to be defeated. You confront it to confront itself. And there's other episodes of Star Trek like computer or Landru or whatever confront its own ideas and it destroys itself. It's like, this is lame. But like I said, I kept watching it. I forget how long it took me to realize, wait a minute, they're building things together. They're putting things together and they're starting to build up. It might have been way into the second season when I finally got internet and was able to look back at chat rooms and realize what he intended from the start. And in retrospect, I can see the first season, much of it was world building. And they had a lot of standalone episodes, but within it were things sprinkled in, peppered in over time that later were used to add together to build into really amazing plots. And when they finally started ramping up and revealed their ending, it was just amazing. But the first season was kind of slow to realize what was happening. In a way, it's good because you don't want things back to back. If they've been one episode, this is laid down and then it was built upon and it would be too obvious. But at the same time, I think it could have gone faster. So one thing happened in an early episode that sort of hooked me to make me like it a lot more, to keep watching it through the first season, was the captain had a girlfriend and she would survey planets for minerals and stuff that they could mine. And she came to Jakar and said, I'm going to go to this planet. And he told her, don't go there. You'll be in trouble. Don't go there. And she's like, I'm going to go anyway. And he goes back to his room and he calls up his home planet and says, I need a couple of these first-class starfighters, whatever they are. They better be fast. They better be good fighters. And I'm like, oh no, he's going in his some kind of shenanigans. He's going to interfere. He's going to try to kidnap her, kill her, damage her ship because he wants mining rights. I mean, she's thinking that. I'm thinking that. But she goes to the planet, and then this mysterious thing comes out, starts draining the energy from her craft, and she's going to crash. And then a couple of the Narn ships come in with a grappling hook and save her. Now she goes back to the station, and she's in an arboretum. I don't know if that's what you call where you have plants, different plants. And she asked Jakar, what was that thing? I saw something. He says, what do you call these things on this plant here? And they were ants. He's like, ants. He's like, if I picked one up and then put it down, one ant said to the other, what is that? He's like, I don't know, but stay out of underneath its, don't get underneath its feet, stay away from it. And he says, those things regard us like ants. Like we can't even communicate any more than an ant can communicate with us. It's like, so all we know is don't get under its feet. It'll stomp you like a bug. He didn't say exactly that. I'm paraphrasing it. But any event, he also said in that episode, everybody isn't what they seem. She asked like, well, why did you take a risk and all to save me and all? It's like, well, everybody's not what they seem on this station. It got me thinking, well, even if he's just trying to butter up the captain, he's more intelligent than I thought. He's not as one-dimensional. So it got me really interesting. Plus the speech he gave, I didn't repeat it very well about the ants and all. The dialogue was interesting. It got me to stick with it. So I guess you could say that's before Game of Thrones. The author was defying expectations. I think he deliberately wrote the characters like that for a few episodes. He made them very narrowly focused, but both Jakar and Londo went through serious changes. And this is another thing I love about it. It's like the things characters choose to do have effects, and then things they have no control over add into the things they do and have outcomes that they couldn't anticipate, but their personalities and change or story arcs that their characters go through. that are amazing to see. Unlike, say, Game of Thrones that set up things for story arcs and never paid off. They had some real big payoffs, amazing stuff that happened to these two characters. Londo, that was kind of buffoonish, wanted to raise his people back to an empire they used to be and made a deal with the devil, so to speak. And once he realized how deep he got in, he couldn't get out. Even though he tried, he couldn't get out. Then Jakar realized that vengeance isn't a very good thing to pursue, and that cooperation with other races, even to the extent of self-sacrifice, is more beneficial to his people as a whole than what he'd been pursuing. And he became almost like a religious character in nature. Okay, now what do I think about whether Babylon 5 should be rebooted or not? I think there's a good reason to reboot it. I don't think it's well known. Any of you people that are nerds and super nerds that love it, don't get angry, but I don't think it's well known. I really don't. And compare it to Star Trek. If you went out and asked people that never saw the original Star Trek, either the TV show or even the movies based on them, never saw it, they would have heard of Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, even minor characters, Scotty, Sulu. If you asked them name some characters, I'm sure they could name them. Or if you name the character names, they'd say, oh, sure, Star Trek. But if you went out and asked just average people, not super nerds, name some characters on Babylon 5, I don't think they could do it. They would say, but what? They wouldn't even know the name of the show. Now, what's further evidence to me of what I'm claiming is Star Trek. I can remember way back when on the early Saturday Night Live, John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, they had a skit where they were doing Star Trek. And that had to be 6-7 years after Star Trek was canceled. It wasn't on the air anymore. And then even later seasons, with new cast and all, they were still doing skits on it. Had William Shatner on as a guest, and audience members are in the skit or annoying them and stuff. Did they ever do a Babylon 5 skit ever of all the years? I don't think they did. And not only that, but shows like The Simpsons that did all kinds of references to sci-fi and stuff. Did all kinds of stuff to Star Trek, not just Star Trek, but Doctor Who, or all kinds of movies, books of sci-fi and their Halloween stuff. I don't remember a Babylon 5. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, if I missed that episode. Or a Futurama had like Mr. Spock's head in a jar. I don't remember any Babylon 5. I even looked up on the internet, Googled, to see if I could find parody for popular TV shows of Babylon 5. I could only find one, the Drew Carey show. I had seen a few episodes of that, but I didn't routinely watch it. I never saw this episode, but it surprised me it existed, that one of the main characters dressed as a Narn, and he met Minbari, a woman dressed as a Minbari, and got a date with her. But that just indicates to me it's not that well known. So if they do a reboot, I think it would be beneficial just to keep the major plot lines. Keep them all. Keep Valen, his origination. So have both captains. Have the history the same of the Minbari Earth War. Have the Shadow War. Everything with the cycle. Have all the major plots the same. And some of you super nerds will be like, oh no, we want something different. I think that's a mistake. There's this huge audience that, as I said, I think hasn't seen it, would enjoy those major plot points. Well, why not just say, okay, go watch the old one? Well, as I said previously, I think season 1 was kind of slow for an audience today with all the other options and things, and some of the individual storylines in season 1 would be boring for a modern audience. There's another one, not just the one infection with the instrument that hooks onto a person. There's one TKO where there's a martial arts contest. Come on, I mean, go watch Rocky or any number of martial arts movies or anything that have that plot. I understand in retrospect when I did watch it a second time what he was doing. He was laying down foundation of world building, gradually exposing the audience to the universe, to planets, races, governments, the history, the characters, and just sprinkling in things that he was going to build upon later, just like a novel, sort of making the setting. But I think it could really be tightened up nowadays. He could shorten it up, take out those plots that are not so good. Okay, so he could tighten things up that first season, definitely. Also, at the end of the series, in the fourth season, they weren't sure they were going to get a fifth season. So he finished up the major plots in season 4, where he wanted to spread them out into season 5. But unlike another book writer, this Mr. Straczynski respected his audience. They were loyal to him. He talked to them in chat groups and all. He's like, I'm not going to stick it to them. I'm going to make sure they know if I get canceled how this story ends, like a certain book reader that says, you think I had an ending to this book? Suckers. How dare you ask for an ending? Oh, but watch my 5 prequels. I need some more money. I don't have enough to buy some more food. I'm like getting kind of thin here. Like, but don't dare ask me for an ending. How can you expect such a thing? Well, don't get me started on that guy. Like, anyway, so Mr. Straczynski finished up in the 4th season. That left the 5th season that's sort of a lot of padding. There were good episodes, but the whole flow of it was disrupted. So if he operated as if, okay, we're going to have a 5th season, and even if it got canceled in the new series, you can say, go watch the old one. There's how it ends. Now, how could you make it more interesting for people to have seen it? He could add some new subplots, little plots that don't significantly alter the major plots, but he could put some more interesting things and take some out of the stuff that was, like I said, old when it was done, that was cliche when it was done. Take that stuff out. There are people that love the show. I've seen on other forums and stuff that say, no, the show shouldn't be rebooted because the 2 major roles that I talked about, Jakar and Londo, were played by actors that just nailed the role. That there's no way in the world you can find anybody comes close to the way they interpreted and did the role. And it's like lightning in a bottle. You'll never catch it again. And I have to sort of agree they did excellent jobs. And I'm not so sure you can get people that can match the role. But as I was saying before, there's many people that never seen the show, and I don't think they would sit and watch it through season 1 to get to the good parts, to realize how good it is. And even if you sat there and arm twisted them, I think they would, the first few episodes, they would say, nah, I'm not going to watch this. So it'd be better to have a new audience that appreciates it and gets to know those major plots that were created in the show. And the old show would always be there for the nerds to go watch. It's still there. Now, what channel would I want to see it on? Now, there was talk of it being on CW, and I wouldn't not want it on CW. I would prefer it not be done if it were going to be on the CW. They don't have a very good reputation for the shows they have on, or I don't like them. Let's put it that way. That's a better way to put it. I would prefer to see it on HBO. Another thing I hadn't mentioned, but nowadays they could do much better on the special effects than they had back then. At the time, the battles were pretty good, I thought, but I don't know how they held up. I heard there's a lot of problems when they tried to transfer it to DVD and such. It's one reason I never bought the DVDs. But there were some episodes with like an alien that came and would eat the insides of people, whatever. But it was really bad special effects. But this show, the story and acting is the important part. So special effects is sort of a minor. That's why I didn't bring it up. But that could be added, and something like HBO would have the money to do it right. What about a continuation in some way of the series? Not a redo, but a sequel, so to speak. He tried it with a show called Crusade, and I did not like the concept of that. The concept was the allies of a major race in the first series wanted to take vengeance on Earth. They had this weapon that took 5 years to take effect. It was like a virus, and it didn't kick in to kill everybody for 5 years. I'm like, that's kind of a stupid weapon. You got time to look for a remedy, plus you got time for that planet that's infected to say, well, we're going to die. We're going to do every effort we can to take vengeance on the other one. Every man, woman, child going to, attack the place. Well, might as well. We're going to be near the end of the 5 years. We're going to die anyway. But more importantly, you've got 5 years to look for a solution. On top of that, they advertised it like there's this one ship. This is their one hope to save the Earth. In the original series, the humans had colonized all kinds of planets. They had people living everywhere else. Plus, they had made allies with all kinds of other planets that had not only their home worlds, but they had colonies. So why wouldn't they be having ships, hundreds, thousands of ships looking around for cures, or scientists working on every planet, not just for altruistic reasons, but in case the enemy attacked their planet with the same weapon. And so it's like, why is this one ship so important? And the other thing is, traveling from planet to planet looking for some solution. It reminds me of a lot of video games. I'll use Elder Scrolls Oblivion. In that game, there's these gates that open up from this other realm, and all these demons swarm out near the city. And you're the hero that's got to stop this, because as time goes on, more gates open up and more places, cities are being destroyed as demons come out and killing people. And you travel around to a town, and somebody comes up and says, oh, my neighbor has a rat problem. Will you go over? He's got 2 or 3 rats in his house. Will you go over there and take care of it? So you say, well, I got this major problem. Geez, what are you bothering me for that for? And the guy says, well, I'll give you a rusty dagger. And like, okay, I'll take a couple days to handle this problem. It's the same thing with that show. You arrive on a planet and you get involved in some menial, small problem on this planet between whatever. Like, you're burning minutes. Every minute you're wasting. You should be looking for the solution of all these people dying. So it's sort of I didn't like that idea. It only lasted, I think, 13 episodes. Then he had one, Legend of the Rangers, and that was like just one episode, and it was really bad too. He changed the nature of the Rangers established in the Babylon 5 that were originally, they were out looking for information, get away. And this one, Legend of the Rangers, or Ranger spaceship comes across a new super alien. It's like, and they flee instead of fighting them and dying fighting. Like, well, and then the rest of the Rangers are mad. Why didn't you just fight to the death? Like, don't you think gathering information, that's what they used to do, and get back and tell other people, don't you think that's important? So it's like they never had that as one of their requisites before. And the other thing is a new powerful enemy, more powerful than any other race. I mean, we've seen that with the other show. And plus, why didn't they know about this race? But anyway, so that didn't last. So that's why I think they should stick to the major things that succeeded. The only other possibility I thought, and some people have suggested this might be good, is a prequel, maybe showing Valen, the captain, first season with the captain, things go on with the first captain and how Valen originates, and then go back in time and show that whole battle and things. The only problem is there's not a lot of human beings on the show. Humans weren't in the past history with the Shadow War, so I don't know if that would go over very well. Another thing that bothered me is some people asked Straczynski at a convention, why should we watch a reboot if we know everything that's going to happen? And he said, well, he would make major changes to the show to reflect like modern day stuff and all. And I don't like that. Many people don't like that. It's like, if you had the things that really, really worked, I don't think he's going to improve on them. All it's going to do is going to make it worse. I think he could, as I said before, that I think if he wanted to put some new stuff, put some subplots that really don't alter the major plot. So you can have some changes with some minor characters that would keep the show interesting for nerds. The other thing, you can know a movie and seen it before and watch it again if it's a really good movie. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, Peter Jackson, I've watched over and over. I know what's going to happen. Even people that read the books say before and know the major things that are going to happen in the movie can enjoy it if it's well done. Well, if there's any questions or comments, please leave them. Thanks for tuning in.